You can give your heart. But don't you dare lose your soul. Because love, real love, is not supposed to break you. It's supposed to build you. So why are so many people disappearing into someone else and calling that love? If you shrink to fit into someone else's life, you're not in love, you're disappearing. There's a difference between compromise and self-abandonment, and too many people cross that line without even realizing it. They think they're being caring, loyal, giving, but what they're actually doing is erasing who they are piece by piece. Love is not supposed to make you less, it's supposed to make you more. More confident. More seen. More alive. Would you find yourself constantly adjusting, suppressing, or minimizing your truth just to make someone else comfortable? You're not growing in love, you're slowly dissolving into it. Real love never asks you to disappear. It never demands that you silence your voice, change your values, or bury your passions. If someone says they love you but only when you're quiet, agreeable, or easy to control, then they love their version of you, not the real you. And that kind of love is conditional. It's performance-based. You end up walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. You become so focused on keeping them happy that you forget what your own happiness even looks like. That's not intimacy. That's imprisonment dressed in pretty words. You were not born to blend into someone else's story. You were born with your own fire, your own rhythm, your own identity. And the right love will never try to put that fire out. It will protect it, fuel it, and honor it. Anything less is a betrayal of the very essence of who you are. The moment you start changing to meet someone's comfort zone, you've already left your own. That's the kind of silent sacrifice that chips away at your soul slowly and silently. And before you know it, you look in the mirror and don't even recognize who's looking back. Love should feel expansive, not restrictive. You should be able to breathe in it, dream in it, thrive in it. If you find yourself constantly second-guessing your words, hiding parts of your personality, or muting your brilliance just to be accepted, then what you have is not love, it's control. And control is not affection. It's fear in disguise. It's someone trying to hold on to you not because they value you, but because they fear losing their grip. And when you sacrifice your authenticity for their security, both of you lose. You don't need to become small to make someone stay. The people who are meant to walk with you won't be intimidated by your fullness, they'll celebrate it. They won't ask you to shrink so they can shine. They'll stand beside you and say, let's rise together. That's what partnership looks like. That's what alignment feels like. Anything else is a distraction. A detour. A lesson maybe, but not your final destination. You deserve a love that meets you where you are and lifts you to where you're meant to go. Not one that pulls you down so you're down so you're to carry. The harsh truth is this: if love costs you yourself, it's too expensive. The most dangerous kind of heartbreak isn't when someone leaves you, it's when you leave yourself to keep them. And that kind of loss is harder to recover from than any breakup. You don't have to choose between love and ambition. That is a false choice designed to keep you small. You were never meant to be one-dimensional. You are not just a partner, you are a visionary, a creator, a force. Your goals matter, your voice matters, and your dreams are not just hobbies, they are extensions of who you are. When you abandon those things to make it work with someone else, what you're really doing is abandoning yourself. And that kind of sacrifice isn't noble, it's destructive. You deserve a life where your dreams aren't tolerated, they're celebrated. Anyone who truly loves you will never feel threatened by your ambition. They'll be inspired by it. They'll understand that your success doesn't take anything away from them, it adds to the partnership. So ask yourself, are you growing? Or are you vanishing? Are you being loved or are you being edited? Because love should never feel like disappearing. It should feel like coming home to yourself, to your power, and to the life you were always meant to live. Falling in love should never mean falling out of ring with your purpose. Yet so many people, especially women, are taught, indoctrinated to believe that once you're in a relationship, your dreams need to take a back seat. Suddenly the focus shifts. Your ambition is seen as selfish. Your passion becomes inconvenient. And before long, the things that once made you feel alive get pushed to the side in the name of love. But let's get something straight. Real love doesn't compete with your dreams. It champions them. It says, go for it, I'm right beside you. Anything less than that is a silent demand to dim your light, and that is not love, that is control wrapped in affection. You don't have to choose between love and ambition. That is a false choice designed to keep you small. You were never meant to be one-dimensional. You are not just a partner, you are a visionary, a creator, a force. Your goals matter, your voice matters, and your dreams are not just hobbies, they are extensions of who you are. When you abandon those things to make it work with someone else, what you're really doing is abandoning yourself. And that kind of sacrifice isn't noble, it's destructive. You deserve a life where your dreams aren't tolerated, they're celebrated. Anyone who truly loves you will never feel threatened by your ambition. They'll be inspired by it. They'll understand that your success doesn't take anything away from them, it adds to the partnership. But the wrong person will see your growth as a threat. They'll question why you work so hard, why you stay up late building something bigger than both of you. And instead of saying, I'm proud of you, they'll say, you're too busy. That's not support. That's sabotage. And slowly you'll start to internalize the idea that to be loved, you must settle. That to be accepted, you must shrink. And that's how you lose yourself while still being physically present. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to abandon your purpose. The two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the strongest relationships are built on mutual respect for each other's vision. They don't just talk about love, they walk it. They make space for late nights, for long-term plans, for uncomfortable growth. If someone sees your drive as a distraction rather than a gift, they're not your partner, they're an obstacle. And obstacles are meant to be overcome, not held onto. There will be people who tell you, directly or subtly, that you're too much, too focused, too driven, too ambitious. But that's only because they've never been in the presence of someone who refused to dim their light. Don't water yourself down to keep someone else from drowning in their own insecurity. The person who's meant for you will swim beside you. They won't just tolerate your intensity, they'll match it, they'll fuel it, they'll respect it. And together, you'll create something that's not just love but legacy. But the wrong person will see your growth as a threat. They'll question why you work so hard, why you stay up late building something bigger than both of you. And instead of saying, I'm proud of you, they'll say, you're too busy. That's not support. That's sabotage. And slowly you'll start to internalize the idea that to be loved, you must settle. That to be accepted, you must shrink. And that's how you lose yourself while still being physically present. You can love someone deeply and still refuse to abandon your purpose. The two are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the strongest relationships are built on mutual respect for each other's vision. They don't just talk about love, they walk it. Remember, love is not a detour from your destiny. The right love will accelerate it. You were born to build, to create, to chase something bigger than comfort. And the person who truly belongs in your life will never ask you to choose between them and your calling. They'll see your calling as part of what makes you extraordinary. So no, you don't need to give up your dreams to be loved. You just need to find the kind of love that sees your dreams and says, let's go to boundaries and not walls, they are windows into how much you value yourself. Yet in the name of love, people keep tearing them down, thinking that vulnerability means complete surrender. But love without boundaries is not love, it's chaos. It's exhaustion. It's emotional bankruptcy. The truth is, you teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. When you have no boundaries, you invite disrespect, not because you deserve it, but because you've made it easy to ignore your limits. And eventually that disrespect doesn't just come from others, it starts echoing from within. When you constantly say yes to things that drain you just to avoid conflict, you're not being kind, you're abandoning yourself. There's this dangerous belief that love requires sacrifice, but nobody ever tells you that sacrificing your peace, your time, your emotional well-being is not romantic, it's toxic. Saying no is not rejection, it's clarity. It's a declaration that your needs matter too. And anyone who can't handle that isn't loving you. They're using you to fill a void they refuse to face. Boundaries don't push people away. They filter out those who don't belong. You are allowed to take up space in your own life. You're allowed to ask for what you need without guilt, without apology, without fear of being too much. In fact, the people who genuinely care about you will want to know what makes you feel safe, respected, and valued. Love that thrives in freedom is love that lasts. If someone gets defensive or manipulative when you draw a line, that's not your cue to retreat, it's your sign to reevaluate. Because love that's afraid of boundaries isn't love, it's control dressed as devotion. Let's be honest, setting boundaries is hard, especially if you've been conditioned to believe that your worth comes from being accommodating. But boundaries aren't about shutting others out, they're about honoring yourself. They say, this is what I can give without breaking myself in the process, and the process. And guess what? The right people won't just accept that, they'll appreciate it. They'll feel safe knowing you know how to protect your energy. Because people who know how to protect their peace invite relationships rooted in respect, not desperation. There's a massive difference between compromise and compliance. Compromise says, let's meet in the middle because we both matter. Compliance says, I'll stay silent so you won't leave. One builds connection, the other builds resentment. And resentment, over time, poisons love from the inside out. If you find yourself constantly bending, twisting, and contorting your needs just to keep the relationship afloat, ask yourself, who's really benefiting from your Simon? And why are you calling that love? You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to write a thesis explaining why you deserve peace. Saying I'm not okay with that is enough. You are enough. The right person will see your limits and still choose you, especially because you have them. Because a person with boundaries is someone who knows their worth, who refuses to be a doormat in the name of connection. There's a massive difference between compromise and compliance. Compromise says, let's meet in the middle because we both matter. Compliance says, I'll stay silent so you won't leave. One builds connection, the other builds resentment. And resentment, over time, poisons love from the inside out. If you find yourself constantly bending, twisting, and contorting your needs just to keep the relationship afloat, ask yourself, who's really benefiting from your Simon? And why are you calling that love? You don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to write a thesis explaining why you deserve peace. Saying I'm not okay with that is enough. You are enough. The right person will see your limits and still choose you, especially because you have them. Because a person with boundaries is someone who knows their worth, who refuses to be a doormat in the name of connection. Love is not about ownership. It's not about control, possession, or constantly monitoring someone's every move. Yet far too many relationships confuse intensity with love, obsession with passion. There is a dangerous lie that says if they're jealous, it means they care. But that's not care, that's fear. That's insecurity disguised as affection. Real love doesn't trap, it trusts. It doesn't seek to cage your freedom just to feel safe. It recognizes that love only thrives when it breathes, not when it's suffocated by control and paranoia. When someone constantly needs to know where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, it's not about love. It's about fear of losing control. And fear, when left unchecked, turns love into surveillance. But you are not meant to be monitored. You are meant to be trusted. A relationship is not a prison sentence. It's a partnership between two sovereign individuals who choose each other freely every day. When that freedom is taken away, love turns into a battlefield where one person always needs to feel dominant and the other is expected to submit just to keep the peace. True partnership is rooted in respect, not possession. It's space where both people feel safe enough to be honest, to be open and to be themselves without fear of being punished for it. Love that demands complete control over your choices, your body, your time, that's not love, that's fear in disguise. And fear cannot sustain a healthy relationship. It becomes a cycle of control, guilt, and manipulation, where every move you make feels like it needs to be approved or explained. That's not connection. That's control masquerading as closeness. You are not a trophy to be placed on someone's shelf. You are not a belonging to be owned. You are a person, not property. The moment someone starts treating you like a possession, they stop seeing you as a partner. And when that happens, your voice, your autonomy, and your choices begin to disappear under the weight of their expectations. Love doesn't mean losing your agency. It means standing side by side, both people empowered, both voices heard, both dreams honored. You don't need permission to live your life, not even from the one you love. If love feels like a leash, it's not love, it's control. If you feel anxious about how your partner will react to your independence, your confidence, your success, that is not a relationship based on mutual respect. That's one built on emotional dependency and power imbalance. The right partner won't just allow your freedom, they'll want it for you. They'll know that the most powerful love is born from two people who are whole on their own and still choose to build together. Not because they're afraid of being alone, but because they see the strength in unity without sacrifice. The idea that love requires control is deeply toxic. Love, when it's real, liberates. It creates a space where both people rise higher, where boundaries are respected, and where trust runs deeper than fear. If you constantly feel like you need to ask for permission to be yourself, that's not love, it's emotional captivity. And captivity kills love faster than anything else. Because without trust, there can be no intimacy. Without freedom, there can be no growth. And without respect, there can be no true connection. Love should never make you feel owned. It should make you feel seen. You were whole before they ever entered your life. That truth is powerful, yet so often forgotten the moment someone new comes along. There's this fairy tale we're fed from a young age that someone will come and complete us. As if we're born as halves, broken and waiting for another person to make us feel worthy. But that narrative is not just misleading, it's dangerous. Because the moment you start believing that someone else is the missing piece to your puzzle, you start giving them power over your self-worth. You start defining yourself through the lens of their validation. And that's when you start to disappear. Love is not about filling a void, it's about two whole people choosing to walk life together. If you enter a relationship expecting to be fixed, to be saved, to be made whole, then you've already placed an impossible weight on the other person's shoulders. They can't heal what you refuse to face within yourself. They can't be your foundation when you haven't built your own. And over time, that dependency doesn't breed connection, it breeds resentment. Because when someone else is responsible for your happiness, your identity, and your peace, the relationship becomes less about love and more about survival. You are not broken. You are not missing pieces. You are not incomplete just because you're single or healing or still figuring it out. You are a full, living, breathing masterpiece in progress. The work you do on yourself is not just preparation for love, it is love. Self-love, the deepest kind. Because when you know who you are, when you understand your value, you stop settling for people who only show up halfway. You stop accepting crumbs when you know you deserve the whole table. And you stop chasing people who can't even meet you where you stand. When two whole people come together, that's when love becomes powerful. Not desperate, not clingy, not controlling, but empowering. It becomes a union of strength, not a bandage for weakness. Each person brings their own identity, their own dreams, their own life, and instead of losing themselves in each other, they expand. They grow. They amplify each other. That's the difference between a relationship built on wholeness and one built on need. The former is a partnership. The latter is a dependency disguised as affection. If you're constantly trying to prove your worth to someone, convincing them to choose you, to stay, to love you back, then you've already handed over your power. You were never meant to chase love. Love isn't something you beg for, it's something you recognize when you're standing tall in your worth. And the kind of love that lasts doesn't come when you're pretending to be someone you're not. It comes when you're fully grounded in who you are. When you're not afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and demand the kind of energy you give so freely. The healthiest love comes when you are your own person first. When your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's attention. When your peace isn't shaken by someone else's presence or absence. You bring your full self to the table, not a version watered down to keep someone around. That's when relationships stop being about survival and start being about synergy. You don't lose yourself in the process. You find yourself deeper. Because in love, the goal isn't to become half of something whole. The goal is to be whole and find someone whose wholeness mirrors your own. Healing is your responsibility, not theirs. Too often, people enter relationships carrying open wounds, hoping love will be the medicine. They believe that if someone loves them enough, stays long enough, gives deeply enough, the pain will disappear. But no amount of affection can substitute for the work you haven't done on yourself. Love doesn't erase trauma, it only exposes it. And when you haven't taken the time to face your own scars, you project them onto someone else and call it chemistry. But pain masters passion is not connection, it's chaos waiting to unfold. You cannot expect someone else to fix what you refuse to acknowledge. It's not their job to rewrite the stories you haven't dared to read. Unhealed people bleed on those who didn't cut them and then blame love for the mess. But love was never the problem, it was the lack of readiness. You cannot build something lasting on a foundation that's cracking beneath your feet. And if you enter love seeking escape instead of alignment, you will always feel like you're drowning, even in the arms of someone who truly cares. Healing is not optional. It's essential. A relationship is not a hospital. It's not meant to carry the weight of your unresolved grief, your unspoken insecurities, or your unhealed patterns. Yes, your partner can support you, walk with you, encourage you, but they can't carry the entire emotional load. That burden belongs to you. If you haven't made peace with your past, it will always interrupt your present. You'll misinterpret love as control, affection as manipulation, silence as abandonment, because your wounds are louder than reality. Healing teaches you to distinguish between truth and triggers, between love and fear. When you've done the inner work, you stop expecting love to complete you and start choosing it from a place of wholeness. You no longer chase people to fill a void. You no longer tolerate behavior that reflects your past pain. Instead, you recognize red flags without excusing them. You communicate clearly instead of reacting emotionally. You set boundaries without guilt. And most importantly, you choose love not out of desperation, but out of discernment. That's what healing does. It sharpens your vision. It aligns your standards with your self-worth. Unhealed love is chaotic. It's a roller coaster of highs and lows that leaves you breathless but empty. It feels intense but unstable. It draws you in with the thrill of being needed, only to leave you shattered by unmet expectations. It's built on codependency, where one person becomes the savior and the other the saved. But that dynamic is never sustainable. Eventually, the cracks show. The emotional weight becomes unbearable, and what once felt like destiny turns into damage. Love should be a mirror, not a crutch or reflection of how far you've come. Not a cover for how much you've avoided. True love meets you after you've met yourself. It finds you after you've cried the necessary tears, faced the painful truths, and taken full ownership of your healing. It doesn't come when you're perfect, it comes when you're aware. When you know your patterns, your fears, your growth edges, and you're committed to working through them, not dumping them on someone else. That's the kind of love that lasts. Not one that saves you, but one that walks beside you as you save yourself. Because the real magic doesn't happen when someone heals you. It happens when someone honors the healing you've already done. So don't lose yourself in love. Don't shrink to fit into someone else's world. Don't erase your dreams just to be someone's comfort. Love was never meant to be a battlefield where you sacrifice your identity for a temporary connection. The right love will never ask you to disappear, it will ask you to rise. And the person who truly sees you will never fear your fire. They'll stand beside it, proud, unshaken, fueled by it. Because the most powerful love is not found in losing yourself for another, but in finding someone who reminds you exactly who you are and never lets you forget it.